We live in a culture built upon lies, where truth, beauty, and goodness have been ripped from their foundations and left to each man to determine for himself. The Christian is to be a light in the midst of this dark world, and yet for decades, we have sent our children to be educated by those living in the dark. Public education, secular in nature, has finally arrived at its natural end, the utter absence of God from all instruction and the imposition of a state-sanctioned worldly morality. Some labor to reform public education, battling school boards, lawmakers, and the ever-evolving ideologies of modern education. We seek a different way, not a new way, but rather a tested one, a proven one, an ancient one rooted in the Word of God, guided by history, pursuant of truth and excellent in everything, one that for centuries past has developed the greatest minds of every generation. We aspire to resurrect the educational paradigms of old, partnering with Christian parents and raising virtuous, eloquent, and wise young men and women by providing them with a Christ-centered and classical education. While the world around us grasps for something novel to save them, we will stand firm upon the rock which we know does not fail.
Bank of America, Wells Fargo, PayPal, Stripe, Vimeo.
They've all repented.
They've all repented.
They're coming to Jesus.
Christians are getting debanked.
They need to.
And it's funny because the mainstream media is not really talking about it that much. Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politics on the Fight Laugh Peace Network. Pastor Toby Chalk Knox.
Nobody would
I'm the
debate
Water Boy.
Christians.
It's good to be with you. We got Jerry Bowyer coming up next to talk about debanking and Christians and everything.
Is your smartphone a tool in the service of Christ, or is it a minefield of distractions and temptations?
Great question.
Soul-killing seductions just a few taps away, our families and churches must embrace biblical accountability on our digital devices. Accountable to you, that's the word accountable, the number 2, the word you. Makes transparency easy on all your family's devices by sharing app usage, detailed browsing history, including incognito mode with your spouse, parent, or chosen accountability partner. Accountable to you helps your family to proactively guard against temptation so you can live with integrity for God's glory. Learn more and try it for free at accountable2you.com/FLF. And don't forget to subscribe to our Cross Politic email list. If you're not already subscribed, you really should be. Being subscribed to our email list means you won't miss any updates about Cross Politic or the Fight Laugh Feast Network. You hear about what's on the schedule for the week, live events, conference updates, rowdy Christian merch, updates from other shows within the Fight Laugh Feast Network, and you'll hear from sponsors on the show as they seek to take dominion for God's kingdom in the business world. To subscribe, simply enter your email address at the bottom of the page at fightlaughfeast.com. Again, that's fightlaughfeast.com. We're grateful to have back on the show. We've had Jerry at least once.
Not nearly enough,
A couple times. Jerry Bowyer is the host of the new podcast, Meeting of Minds, author of the really wonderful book, The Maker versus the Takers, a study of the Gospels in a way you never saw this before. Contributor at World News Group and a former columnist at Forbes. Jerry, thanks for coming back on Cross Politic.
Great to be back. I've been wondering, what took so long? Did I do something wrong last time?
No, you did not
Wait a
accept my
second.
board position offer. That's what happened.
What happened? What? We had a board. I want to know about this. I just wonder why you haven't called us and say what you wanted to talk about. You got an open seat right here. Is there a seat right there? And a seat right there?
All right. That's what I'll do from now on.
I'm serious.
Well,
bro.
Well, here's how I got on this time was because he made some comments about Christians being debanked. And I got in the comments like, dude, we got to get you on the show to talk about this.
No, seriously, Jerry.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a bee in your bonnet, you have an open invite to Cross Politics.
All right. Thank you.
Seriously.
I mean that.
We would love to talk to you. So we want to talk to you today about debanking Christian organizations. What's going on? I've heard little rumblings about this, but I thought it was just the Canadian truckers that were getting debanked.
Well, Canadian truckers and Nigel Farage, the king of Brexit, and Sam Brownback, the former ambassador for religious liberty by J.P. Morgan Chase. Now we've worked on things with J.P. Morgan Chase, thanks to David Bahnsen, who's a shareholder there, who put his shares on the line and put a proposal on the ballot. More on that coming, but there's been some progress there. Bank of America recently debanked Indigenous Advance, which is a ministry to widows and orphans in Uganda. And again, there was a proposal on the ballot there. Put forward that we helped put forward. A lot of this is with David Bahnsen. A lot of it also is with American Family Institute, and sometimes we'll work with some others. And what that means is, people don't know this. If you're a shareholder of a company and you've owned $2,000 worth of that company for the past 3 years, you can propose something to go on the ballot at the annual meeting that gets voted on by all the shareholders. And it gets read by the board of directors and the top management, and you get to make a statement in support of your proposal. So this is a way of setting the agenda rather than reacting to the agenda. And largely, Christians have been watching as corporate America has gotten ideologically captured. No, actually, we haven't been watching. We were averting our eyes while it was getting ideologically captured, and then we were shocked to find out that it was ideologically captured.
Because it wasn't about the gospel. That's why. It had nothing, shareholding has nothing to do with the gospel.
That's right. It's not personal salvation, right? So that's the gospel. That's the only thing the gospel is. It doesn't have anything to do with our God reigns, which is, of course, what evangelion means in the Septuagint, right? God reigns. The gospel is our God reigns over everything. Now, historically, a lot of that has to do with, confronting nations and empires. But our nations and empires now, to a large degree, are large corporations. Arguably, they're more influential. I mean, honestly, I think Disney has more influence over the long run than the president of the United States. Culture shape, because capitalism is so efficient that when it does something right, it does it very well, and when it does something wrong, it does it very well. So if we're not discipling the nations, if we're not discipling the corporations as well.
Okay.
Hold on. Don't you go nowhere. There's too much here. Okay, I love what you just said. Please clip that, put that everywhere. How much money did you say we had to have of shares? 200,000 of shares?
$2,000.
No,
$2,000.
$2 million. It had to be a whole
$2,000. If you've owned $2,000 worth of Apple, Disney, Target, InBev, which is Bud Light. I mean, if you've owned $2,000 worth, it's not $2,000 anymore. It's a little less than that now, but that's their fault, not yours. But if you've owned $2,000 worth of a company for the past 3 years, there's paperwork, but we help with that, and you can put a proposal on the ballot. And so someone like Bahnsen was able to talk to the biggest bank in the world, J.P. Morgan Chase, and call them out for what happened to Sam Brownback when he started a religious liberty organization and then was told 3 weeks later, we don't want your business. And so taking that agenda to them, challenging them, not taking, nonsense answers from them when they say, oh, well, it's, you're on a watch list for terrorism or some crazy allegation or something like that, or just vague things. Well, we have a standard for determining this, and it's a robust standard, and it's transparent. We have a transparent, robust standard that reports to a committee, all like process nonsense. And in the end, you finally say, look, he was a governor, he was a senator, he was an ambassador, he's not a nutter. He started a religious liberty organization that just was pushing for religious liberty, nothing crazy, and his bank account was canceled. Can you just give us a straight answer as to why that happened? Or same with Bank of America, canceling Indigenous Advance. I mean, that Ugandan ministry, the head of that ministry says that their people live meal to meal, not paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And they had paychecks delayed 2 weeks. And Bank of America gave basically bunk answers.
Wow.
They said, oh, well, we don't serve debt collection, organizations. Well, it wasn't a debt collection organization. There's another organization with a similar name that has a website that did a little debt collection, but not Indigenous Advance and not the church that was associated with it. So we just kind of keep coming back and challenging them and set the agenda. And yes, all you have to be is a $2,000 shareholder for the past 3 years.
And
That's actually incredible.
well, what's incredible is that it seems like the opportunities for us to hold them to the rules is still available to us if we were actually engaged.
Yes. And to me, here's the really beauty part. The Biden administration made it easier to put proposals on the ballot. They because there's a complicated set of rules. I hate it.
Illegal immigrants can vote. Is that what?
Say again?
Illegal immigrants can vote.
Like illegal shareholders, people who
Illegal shareholders
who cross the border into the shareholder meeting. I mean, it's interesting. Some of these companies are pushing for. They're like mad at Georgia for having a voter ID law to vote. But you have to show your ID to get into the annual meeting to vote at Coca-Cola. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
But so the rules are such that it has to be sort of relevant, and there's like 13 rules where the company can kind of knock it down. And the Biden administration came along and made it easier to put proposals on the ballot because it's been the left that's been doing it.
Yeah.
And what's happened is the unintended consequence, he who digs a hole shall fall into it. The unintended consequence is that we've had a lot more proposals from the right because the left already knew the rules. They were already organized. The SEC was already on their side. They didn't need the help. It's the conservatives who were new to this. We kind of needed the help. So we conservatives who are putting proposals on the ballot are able to use the loopholes that the Biden administration put in to make it easier for the left to put proposals on the ballot by putting in certain keywords and phrases. So in the past couple of years, there's been the most significant growth has been not from ESG, environmental social governance proposals, pushing companies to the left, but rather from groups that are countering that.
Wow.
The growth has been largely on our side.
And we don't see that.
Incredible.
That's not something that's talked about publicly.
No.
So there's this kind of this underbelly thing happening that we're not even aware of.
Yeah, that's right. I think Christian media has not quite caught up with the fact that the battle in the boardroom is probably more important than the battle in the courtroom or the battle at the ballot.
Come on,
Wow. Yeah,
preach, preacher.
that's right.
You better preach. You know what? You can just take the mic and talk. You got it. It's all your show. Go ahead.
So Christian media isn't interested in it, or it becomes a debate about whether to screen them or not. So in Christian finance, the big fight is, are you morally allowed to own Disney? Or are you morally allowed to own Target? Or are you morally allowed to own like an index that might have that in there? That is such a kind of retreat question, as opposed to, wait a minute, you have those shares. What are you going to do? That's a bridge into the heart of the company. Every time that we've worked with David Bahnsen or American Family Association or others to do a proposal, we have had meetings, often several meetings with the management team, at the general counsel level, the diversity, equity, inclusion people. That doesn't always go so well. The ESG people or investor relations. We had, 5 or 6 meetings with Apple, the largest corporation in the world. So this is a way to kind of get right to the heart of these companies instead of what I've seen mostly from conservative Christians and conservatives in general is impotent rage at a distance. You go on Tucker and Disney's so terrible and it's so horrible. What they did today with the parental rights, or what they called the Don't Say Gay bill, that's so terrible. And 1 million people are watching Tucker. And I was at that meeting and there were like 150 questions, all coming from one side. No conservative Christians speaking up. I don't know if there were any others beside me even at the meeting. And at the beginning of the meeting, the CEO did not want to get involved in this curriculum thing in Florida. But by the end, he was cajoled into it. And I'm thinking,
wow,
if 0.1% of the people who were watching Tucker that night getting mad at Disney had just and who were shareholders, had just called in and asked a question, it would have had a different outcome. So we're just like outraged and addicted to outrage rather than going and doing something. Are we supposed to fix the problem? It's partly an eschatology thing, as you guys well know. We're like Lot, who's vexed, while Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed, rather than an Abraham who's trying to save it right? We're trying to save it.
Yeah. Wow. That is
Short-term rage is there's a lot of satisfaction.
sort of
that.
There's some catharsis
Yeah.
in the momentary rage, but
because I got really mad at Jerry when he defended David French yesterday. No, just kidding.
Have you worked it through, or do you need to blow up some steam? Or
Is that where we're going?
Jerry's ready for you. Now, I want to hear a little bit. I mean, you guys can talk about that too, but I wanted to so how widespread is the debanking problem? You kind of threw out a few different things, but can you explain how widespread is this?
Well, it's widespread enough that it involves all the major banks except maybe one or two, and in those cases, there's a lot of underreporting. There's a bank that we dealt with that was debanking some conservative organizations on the immigration question.
Yep.
But we found out afterwards that it had tried to debank a major religious ministry. So a lot of it is people suffer in silence, or they go back to the bank and they say, please, what do we need to do? And the bank might say,
Right.
well, if you say something diversoid or something, you're okay. So they're kind of harassed, but not officially debanked. And a lot of it just doesn't get reported. I know a major ministry that was debanked by Stripe, but they didn't say anything for years. Now, recently, they did come out and talk about it. So for some reason, people don't always want to talk about it. That's what I really admired about Nigel Farage, who I met recently at a conference where he spoke about this. When he was debanked, he just came at them. He just went at the subsidiary of NatWest and just demanded to know what was going on. Yeah. And somebody inside leaked information, and it turned out that he was politically debanked. So it's underreported, and
100%.
It is a problem. And remember, it's not just debanking; it's also deplatforming by tech companies. There's a lot of D'ing going on that Christians need to be concerned about.
It is amazing to me because I found out about Bank of America debanking. I don't know if it's from you. Well, it might have been from you, but I just it was kind of dumbfounded about how mainstream media just doesn't care about this.
Yeah.
You point out that the ministry that was debanked from Bank of America were just helping support and feed the hungry in Uganda.
Yeah.
And we're distributing checks that couldn't be cashed. So they're willing to basically destroy your lives, make you go hungry more, all for political gains and purposes and all this. One of the things, Jerry, that I always default to recently in these conversations, especially since we started experiencing cancel culture a little bit, or we started talking about it in 2016 and 17. We using the term anti-fragile. We need an anti-fragile server. We want anti-fragile. But and then 2020 it picked up full steam for us. We were getting canceled and suppressed by YouTube, all that stuff, and then Vimeo deplatformed us last August. But because of all this, I default to, well, why don't we just start our own bank? Why don't we just pool Christian money together, start our own bank, and state bank or something like that? That's pretty feasible. I think your move about buying shares in the company is super important. I think that's fantastic. We should run that play. But it also seems to me we should also be building our own infrastructure too.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's prophets who are outside the court, and there's prophets who are inside the court. Let's build our own banks. In fact, I've got a friend who's building his own bank. Actually, I have two friends who are each building their own bank, and I think that's great. There's a certain scale that you have to reach in order to be effective as a bank, and to have a national footprint. So, in the meantime, we should fight against banks that are debanking people. Now, that might be sort of common grace kind of effect to kind of slow down the decline, or they might actually change their minds. I don't know. That's in the Lord's hands what happens. Yeah. So I'm all for Christians starting banks. Make them good banks. Don't make them bad banks. We've had enough sloppy agape Christian business practices. If you're going to do it, do it right. Yeah. So in the meantime, I think there's a Christian credit union, so there's some national scale there. So I'm all for the parallel economy, but I'm not for the parallel economy and then letting the mainstream institutions go to hell in a handbasket. I think they need to be challenged as well.
Have we seen any success yet? I mean, you mentioned like meetings. I mean, I'm with you. Like, that's glorious. The fact that you're actually, you're appealing, you're writing, you're getting meetings. Have we seen any success yet?
Yeah, there've been a number of successes. Now, we have to define success kind of in phases.
Sure.
If you speak the truth with clarity and love, that's a success already, right?
Sure.
That's because you can only be responsible for what you can determine the outcome of. Now, that's not all you want to happen.
Yeah.
Right? You want more to happen, but showing up and saying it is a success. Exposing false presuppositions is a success. Getting people to realize that those false presuppositions have been exposed and change their minds or their behavior is kind of a more mature form of success.
Sure.
So there's going to be more coming out about this, but I think that Bahnsen made a tremendous amount of progress with J.P. Morgan Chase. For example, since the Brownback debanking, there have been no reports of any similar debankings on sort of religious lines. There was an anti-vaccination doctor, Dr. Mercola, who was debanked. I don't like that. We focused on religious liberty, not on the vaccine issue. And there have not been any Christian ministries or no reports at all. And since there was so much publicity about it, chances are someone would have come forward, since that proposal. In addition, they changed the language for WePay, which is their payment option. They used to have a basis for debanking called social risk, which of course can mean anything you want it to mean.
Right.
You go to a party and someone says, "Why do you have those crazy people from CrossPolitic, with a Chase account?"
We're social risk.
And that's social, right? People at the cocktail party you don't want to socialize with you anymore.
Yeah.
They got rid of social risk. And they also added viewpoint diversity to their ESG page. It's a lot of progress to make with the world's largest bank in 2 years.
What is the status? So maybe just review, and you've referenced it a few times, but can you just sort of summarize the deal with Bahnsen and what is the state of his appeal or whatever that process is?
Yeah, would it be helpful for me to just overview how the thing works?
Yeah.
Okay. So every right that you have as a citizen of a republic, you have an analogical right as a shareholder. So as a citizen of a republic, you can vote. You vote for president, local elections, members of Congress, right? Or referendum questions, right? Well, as a shareholder, you get to vote on all of those things as well. You have the right to do that. You can go to a town hall meeting as a citizen. Well, you can go to the annual meeting as a shareholder and ask a question. How many shares do you need in order to go to the annual meeting? Just one share, and you can attend the annual meeting. Physically, when they're physical, mostly they're log on and you can ask questions. Citizens have the right to talk to their elected officials. They might call their congressperson, for example. Well, shareholders can contact investor relations. It's not just the general complaint line. It's the complaint line from the boss. Shareholders are the boss. We keep forgetting that. That's important. Shareholders are over the board. The board is over the CEO. The CEO is over the company. And when we talk to these companies, we have to keep reminding them of that. You work for us. You've forgotten that. Bahnsen even made that point. Next time someone knocks on the door, with the Cause of the Month Club, tell them, we don't work for you. We work for the shareholders. So you can attend the annual meeting. Just like a citizen can put a proposal on the ballot if you're in an initiative or referendum state, put a proposal that says we want to put a limit on borrowing or a limit on property taxes. California had Proposition 13, or we want to amend the Constitution to protect human life, or amend the Constitution in the other direction. And then that goes before all the citizens in the state, and they get to vote on it. Well, that's one of the rights that shareholders have if they own that $2,000 worth. So what we've done is we help people vote correctly, as using their shares. But another thing we do is we help shareholders like Bahnsen and others to put their own proposals on the ballot. The idea is, for a long time, there's been a red state election every year, because shareholders are more conservative than the population in general. It's like every company is like a red state. There's been an election every year. We didn't know there was an election. We didn't show up and we lost.
Wow.
Now we've started to kind of say, oh, there's an election and we're voting no on their bad ideas. Well, the phase now is to get them to vote no on our good ideas, to set the agenda, and maybe by God's grace to get them to vote yes eventually on our good ideas. So what someone like Bahnsen can do as a shareholder, but you don't have to be a financial professional. He's just doing it because he's a leader. He's an out front kind of guy, but ordinary shareholder can do it. Like, for instance, with Bank of America, that was just an ordinary shareholder. That was just Leonard.
Yeah.
Leonard was a Bank of America.
Thank you, Leonard.
Yeah, thank you. Just ordinary guy, and he owned Bank of America. And his financial advisor connected him with us, and so he got to set the agenda. And there was a press conference, and there was national press, and Bank of America had to answer the question, and they didn't answer the question truthfully. So that was another round of press. So that happens during the shareholder season, which is right now. There's a lot of company meetings going on right now. And these people are able to speak to the board of directors and make their argument. Now, what usually happens is the company says, we don't want this on the ballot. We don't think shareholders need to worry about this. And they challenge it, and they go to the SEC and say, we don't think this belongs on the ballot. This isn't a shareholder concern. And then we, or working with Alliance Defending Freedom, challenge that and say, of course it belongs on the ballot. It's a shareholder concern. And Bahnsen won against JP Morgan on that in front of the SEC. AFA won against Apple, same issue, with the help of Alliance Defending Freedom, so that it was upheld and did have to appear on the ballot. And we got to have the presentation, we got to have the vote, and we got to have the debate.
Wow. Now more than ever, it's important to support companies and organizations that share our values. Our votes are not enough. Patriot Mobile not only shares our beliefs, but does something about it. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless carrier, and they donate a portion of every dollar to organizations that fight for causes that you actually care about. Switch to Patriot Mobile today. Go to patriotmobile.com/crosspolitic. That's patriotmobile.com/crosspolitic. What you thinking, Nux?
In my best Cuba Gooding Jr. voice, Jerry, you blowing my mind, Jerry. You blowing my mind, Jerry. Jerry, you blowing it.
Show me the money.
It's
There were Kevin Hart overtones to that a little bit.
No, you're right. I him too. So a couple things. Who's this us you keep saying? Because we haven't identified who the us is, and I want to know who us is.
Yeah.
Us is Bowyer Research.
Oh, it's you.
Yes, and my wife Susan and our kids here in our dining room.
Boy,
she joked that if we ever kind of put it together in a conglomerate, we should call it the dining room group.
Yeah,
I like it.
Here it is. This is the dining room table that I'm talking to you on now. So,
okay.
So we consult with shareholders and financial asset managers, et cetera, on first of all how to vote. See, here's the thing: if you're an investor in these companies, if you've got a 401k, you are voting. Somebody's voting something, on your behalf. So, there have been proposals in the past couple of weeks, for instance, that are challenging companies that endorsed abortion to say, why did you do that? How is that in shareholders' interest to endorse abortion? So you might own some of those companies, Intel, for example. How did you vote on that? Well, if you have your money with, a BlackRock or a Vanguard or whatever, some of these big funds, you probably didn't vote the way you would have wanted to vote, because when you invest in these funds, then essentially you give that vote away. Or sometimes people own the companies directly, and then they get these big proxy statements in the mail, and they're 100 pages long, and they don't know how to deal with it, and they throw it away, which means you've automatically voted with management, which means you voted against Sam Brownback, and you voted against Indigenous Advance for debanking. So we're kind of sleepwalking through this. So at Bowyer Research, we help asset managers, we help financial advisors to kind of vote the way that their clients want them to vote. And also, if they want to kind of go to the more advanced kind of kung fu level of this, I know Garrett's more a judo guy, but to kind of put forward our own proposals and kind of set the agenda.
So you're arguing, you're saying if I have a 401k, I don't get a direct vote. But if I own shares in the company, I would get $2,000 worth of shares, 3 years kind of thing. I would get a direct vote.
If you own the shares, whether it's in an IRA, 401k or not, if you own the company itself, then you get a direct vote. If you're using a fund, like an ETF or a mutual fund, have a bunch of companies in them, then you have given them your vote.
I see. Okay.
But you only need to own one share to have a vote. Is that
That's right? You only need one share to have a vote.
Oh, right.
You only need one share to log on to the annual meeting and to ask a question. You only need one share to call or write to investor relations.
The
you need $2,000 worth to put your own proposal on the ballot. So I'm wondering, why is it? I mean, for a long time, proposals from the left compared to our side, they were like 20 to 1. We were maybe 5% of proposals. We're not 5% of shareholders. Conservatives they've got to be 60, 65, 70% of shareholders. But we're 5% of the proposals. Why are we not the vast majority? Because we got into retreat mode, I think.
Because we don't
got into the conversation of like getting out of these companies rather than engaging with them.
I think the reason is because we don't think of our dining rooms like you do.
You eat in them.
No, no, but I'm serious. Like your family, your feasting room is also your battle room.
Come on now.
It's and we fight and laugh here. So
I know.
and we fight and we laugh right here.
Yeah, and you feast.
We feast.
But I'm serious. It all goes together, and I think like we have coasted in our families, and we've coasted in our churches.
Right. That's right.
And I think men in particular have coasted, or I think you're right. We're apathetic and we're lazy and we're cowardly, or we do this. I can't remember your phrase for it, Jerry, but like this outrage, from a distance.
Impotent.
But it's
impotent.
Yes.
Both.
I thought you guys might like that kind of manly.
Yeah,
it was good.
Thank you for catering to us. I appreciate
absolutely.
that.
No, you know how to.
Yeah, I'm definitely pandering. Yeah.
You know how to reach out to us, but it's just like we have.
I know your love language.
Yes, you do. We have been soft. We have been, and we have been just like you said. We've had our head in the sand, and we've not been thinking about our families as places where we are cultivating and practicing Christian culture and building things that are actually good for the world. And I think it's just a beautiful picture of that. The fact that you started this family business, Bowyer Research, in your dining room with your wife and your kids,
fighting.
That's a glorious picture of Christian culture, and taking it all the way to Apple boardrooms and Bank of America boardrooms. I mean, this is beautiful.
First of all, Jerry, may your tribe increase. Because if you're going to do that with your dining room, I'd love to see what you do with a full boardroom. Second of all is, why come you haven't given us the website of where we can check out what you do?
Oh, well, you can go to BowyerResearch.com, BOWYER research.com. And that is largely about our proxy voting guidelines. So this whole world is really complicated. And there's like 800 kind of categories of these proposals that appear on ballots. So we were working with some asset managers and we kind of cracked the code on it. And I started to get to know some of the red state treasurers, and they were having anti-ESG, environmental social governance, which is basically a way of bringing left-wing politics into finance. They were having anti-ESG press conferences and op-eds, and they were talking about how bad BlackRock was. But then we looked closely at the data, and we found out that they were voting more ESG in most cases than BlackRock.
Wow.
So we created a comprehensive set of guidelines. And then ISS, which is the largest of the proxy advisory services in the world, is, as of this year, is offering those so that any government entity, pension plan, so, whatever state you're in, there's a pension plan or two or three, partly under the control of the treasurer or the controller. And so they can use our guidelines. And I know how they voted, the ones who use us, I know how they voted with Sam Brownback or on indigenous advance or on the risks of abortion speech recently or the risks of decarbonization. I know how they voted because they use our guidelines. And this is something that I really think ministries need to look at this too. So I really take my hat off to American Family Association. How many large Christian ministries, even medium-sized, or just church pension funds, are voting pro-abortion, anti-religious liberty, for debanking, for deplatforming, because they don't even know what's going on and they don't even think about it.
Wow.
It's just, and I can't give names because a lot of it's confidential, but I get a look eventually, when I talk to them, they tell me how they're, which funds they're investing in, and we run the analysis, and they're voting completely contrary to the values that they hold. I'm talking about conservative, evangelical. I'm not talking about Big Eva. I'm not talking about Wheaton College or whatever, right? I'm talking about very conservative institutions. They're voting, kind of the opposite of the way that they're talking. So nobody's taking up this burden of responsibility. And if they did, listen, we've had just, David Bahnsen, American Family Association. That's 2 players. And already this thing is starting to turn around. You better. What if there were 200 ministries rather than, and 200 financial advisors rather than one ministry and one financial advisor? Then they would be having strategy sessions about why the other side is losing so much. And who are these people? And where did they come from? And what happened? And why are we losing all the votes now?
So I know we got in our audience, a lot of mutual fund
y'all hear what he's saying? Doggone it.
I know, 100%.
Jerry got the unlock, Jerry.
That work for like Thrivent, that work for Northwest Mutual, that work for or have their own management.
I was about to ask Jerry to do an analysis on mine right now.
No,
I don't know if I want to do this live on the show, but I'm feeling like...
Send me the list confidentially, and we'll send back of a confidential. We'll let you know if you test ESG positive. There's no shame. There's treatments for this.
MVP. Yeah, I seriously think.
Here's my question. Should those people who are managing our mutual funds and stuff reach out to you? Would they be a key player in this?
Absolutely a financial advisor. We can work with a financial advisor. We don't work with individual retail investors. It's just not something we can do.
Yeah.
It is actually a little struggle to work with a financial advisor as opposed to a big asset manager, or like a big state pension plan. But we'll find a way to work with an advisor. Absolutely.
Wow.
Because you've got a lot of Christians who are working for firms that have a pretty anti-Christian orientation to them.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: a lot of people think if they just have a nice Christian financial advisor, it's already happening.
Right.
When I talk to advisors about this, the biggest reason that we hear that they don't want to talk to their clients about it is because if they talk to a client about it, the client's mad, they're angry because they thought you were already doing it.
Yeah. Right.
So, one particular client turned to the advisor and said, "You've been my advisor for 20 years. Why didn't I know I could do this?"
Yeah.
And I think there's an answer, which is, well, nobody knew, right? Nobody was paying attention, but now we're paying attention and we're way ahead of everybody else, so, someone can still be early, but, I think that, and the other thing is people, if they think they use like a Christian mutual fund and they'll be okay, I can tell you that these funds that basically like screen out sin stocks, their voting records are as bad or sometimes much worse than a BlackRock by far. I'm not going to name names. It wouldn't be the right thing to do, but I just looked at the analysis for a large, very conservative denominational asset manager, 10 times the support for abortion proposals as BlackRock.
Shut up.
Wow.
You shut up.
Oh.
Is that Thrivent?
Okay.
Is that Thrivent? That's what I work with.
Don't.
Probably should have shut up a minute ago because I'm going to get blowback from this one.
No,
but,
you know what? So, give us the website again, Jerry.
Bowyer Research, www.BOWYER research.com. And that describes our, how we vote.
I could do 4 shows off of the content you just gave us. You've been holding back, not coming on here because you didn't think we wanted to talk with you. I'm mad at you right now, Jerry.
Yeah, it is kind of like one of those relational things where I thought you didn't love me.
Bruh,
you
straight gave us a cultural cheat code. You sit up here and gave us a cultural cheat code. I hope everybody understands that.
Yeah.
Like you gave us another place to be engaging with, and it's been on the table, and it's just my head exploded. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, the way that people feel about their financial
A place
advisor.
where it's almost all gain because we're starting out from a baseline of near zero.
The way people feel about their financial advisors, how we feel about you right now.
Right.
You just now telling us?
That's fantastic. All right, get ready for your next topic when you come on the show, because we got to chat with you next time, brother. Appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Keep it up.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
Make dining rooms great again.
Wow.